My computer is being so wonky today, guys. My Zoom thing keeps going away. All right, so we've already hit the warm-up. We've already talked about the Unit 3 project intro. So the first kind of two things we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the amendment process. How do amendments come to be? You're going to be able to identify how they come to be. Then we're going to talk about the intro to our study pods. And then we are going to finish out the day with our Bill of Rights activity. All right, so we have James Madison, right? And you can see my screen, thumbs up, right? Okay, just making sure. So we have James Madison. He's the father of the Bill of Rights. And he is going to tell us about Article 5 and the amendment process, okay? And as well as his pride and joy, the Bill of Rights. So James Madison was huge on the incorporation of the Bill of Rights and kind of what they needed to say based on what happened with King George III. And now remember, in 1790, which was our earliest census, okay, we had 13 states, and we had close to 4 million people. Now, obviously, that doesn't touch our 330 million people that we have today. But that was a lot of people to kind of figure out what they wanted, how they wanted to be governed, what sorts of things were important to them. So it was a big deal to kind of get these Bill of Rights together and to choose just 10. Because I don't know if you know this, but several more than that were asked to be adopted as well. So the Bill of Rights was almost like 15 rights, but they whittled it down to roughly 10. So Article 5 is super duper important, but super duper short. Okay, this is the entire length of Article 5 right here. All right, and it says, I'm not going to read it to you. Go ahead and read this to yourself. All right, so according to Article 5, who is kind of in charge of the amendment process? Say that again. Yes, Congress, okay? So Congress is going to be in charge, specifically both houses, right, of the amendment process. So in order for an amendment to kind of be accepted or ratified, what's the process according to Article 5? What needs to happen? What needs to happen?
2/3 of the houses need to agree, like vote.
Yeah, yep, exactly. They need to agree that this constitution or this amendment is necessary. Okay, so that's the first thing. What's the other way that the amendment can kind of come to Congress? What can the states? Yes, Amir. Yes, so the states can call a convention. And how many states would need to do this? Okay, 2/3 of the several states. All right. What else needs to happen? Okay. All right. And then does it just become poof, this is an amendment?
Does Congress have to vote on it too?
No, right? So this can be an either or process. So if it starts out in the houses, or so in Congress, 2/3 of Congress propose the new amendment, and then the states have to ratify it. But if the states kind of bring it forward first, then Congress really doesn't have a vote, which is kind of interesting, don't you think? Don't you think that's kind of interesting? Yeah, me too. All right. And so it also tells us in Article 5 that we can't touch slavery until when? 1808. We cannot amend the Constitution having to do with slavery and the trade thereof until 1808. So this, remember, was one of the big compromises, because they said, listen, we are never going to get this Constitution passed if we still have the slavery issue looming over us in all of our decision making. So what they do is they say, look, we're going to revisit this issue in 1808. And they did. So kind of the highlights from Article 5 is that the framers really wanted the Constitution to be a living document, okay? They knew that the country was going to change and that the document was going to have to be flexible. But they didn't want it to be too flexible, right? So they wanted the amending of the Constitution to be difficult, but not too difficult, all right? So when we have the proposing of amendments, we have 2/3 of Congress, and they are required, or 2/3 of Congress is required to propose an amendment, or 3/4 of the states are required to pass an amendment. Okay. So we have 2/3 of Congress requiring to propose it, or the states can call it convention, and then we have 3/4 of the states required to pass an amendment. All right. So propose and pass. Propose and pass. Meg, can you hear this? Okay.
Constitutional Convention, May 1787, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, for 55 members of states came together to establish our government and define our rights and institutions run our country. Lots of big names there. Madison, Monroe, and Harrison, but there were also some big names that didn't. Thomas Jefferson was his grandson. John Adams was also serving as an even some of our favorite little rebel rousers like Samuel Adams, John Hancock, and Patrick Henry, Tim the Nelson Rice, Philadelphia, Kentucky, their sentiments bring us to how the Bill of Rights came to be. Several men and states believed that the Constitution didn't address the civil rights of the people and therefore refused to ratify it. So, James Madison, known as the father of the Constitution, wrote out amendments that would address these rights. All amendments.
Hey, stop.
Time to define. To break the Bill of Rights into three parts: personal rights, legal rights, and just in case this guy let's start with this amendment addresses the right to practice with government. To better understand this amendment, we have to look at what these words mean. A well-regulated military is a group of local men who could act as a military force in the event of war. They would help fight off Native American raids, invasions, and even act as local police. The important identifying factor about these men is that they were effectively trained, organized, and disciplined. The right to bear arms is as much a basic as a right. Some people argue that it protects the right of possession of guns only because federal organized militias, such as the National Guard. Others believe that the Second Amendment protects the right of individuals and elections to their own self-defense. In 2008, the Supreme Court supported this belief. The court held that the Second Amendment protects the individual's right to defend himself and self-defense violence. The Third Amendment deals with soldiers and your home. This amendment prohibits the housing of soldiers in private homes. So, basically, the big in-your-face Great Britain without holding the fort on the American. The Fourth Amendment deals with your personal property and with those who can search for your stuff. It talks about things like removing the searches and seizures and probable cause of mine. It's all some pretty crazy legal mumbo jumbo, so let me give you one. This is colonist Joe. It's like the average American citizen. He supports the Patriots, likes to play blue, and he does like getting coffee. Now, Joe has a house. It's a pretty nice house. It's his private property. But there's something illegal in that house. Joe's a hoarder, and he has a lot of cats. Problem is, none of the cats are his. He's been stealing them from property. Yeah, Joe's a little crazy. Now, those cats are hidden in Joe's house, and because of that, police can't just enter his house without his consent. That lets his police officer obtain it. Officers can enter his home even if Crazy Joe doesn't want them to. Oh, when will you learn, Crazy Joe? Most things are illegal. In the criminal justice system, your rights in court are protected by four separate yet equally important amendments. Amendments that protect your entitlement to a fair trial, to remain silent, and prevent cruel and unusual punishment. And these are those amendments. While you may have not had to deal with your legal rights, and hopefully won't anytime soon. Let's refer back to our good buddy, Crazy Joe. Turns out, I lost him. Which brings us to the Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment deals with those who are accused of a crime. You have the right to due process, and you have the right to remain silent and not act as a witness against you on this crime. Now, if Crazy Joe ends up going to trial, he's going to need to rely on the Sixth Amendment, which covers your rights in criminal cases. A criminal case is brought by the local, state, or federal government in response to a suspected violation of a law and seeks a fine or a jail term or both. The Sixth Amendment covers a lot of your rights. You have the right to a speedy trial. You have the right to an unbiased jury of your case. You have the right to know what charges are being brought against you. And finally, you have the right to a lawyer to represent you in court. And if you can't afford one, the state will provide you. This is to ensure that you have a fair representation in your trial and that someone really knowledgeable about the law can solve your case. Now let's say Crazy Joe doesn't have to leave at the time of his name and tax, but he may have to go to court for another reason. Joe's neighbors can't trip him because of all the things. His neighbors wouldn't take him to court. They would be afraid. This would be a civil case. Civil cases are generally brought by private individuals or corporations seeking request money or monetary compensation. The Seventh Amendment deals with this type of case. In these type of cases, you're allowed to have a trial with a jury or just a judge. Now, let's pretend instead of Joe being found innocent, he was found guilty. I know, I'm sorry, Joe. Once you're found innocent of a crime, you can't be found guilty. Regardless, if he is found guilty and has to go to jail, you can rest assured that the Eighth Amendment deals with criminal punishment protects you. The Eighth Amendment prohibits excessively high fines and forbids criminal punishment. The last two amendments deal with all the stuff the founding fathers knew they didn't mention, but still wanted to protect. The Ninth Amendment deals with all of the natural rights not explicitly listed there. Reading the Ninth Amendment seems complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. By doing this, the founding fathers don't have to write out all of your rights, including the ones that didn't even exist during that time. The Constitution protects your natural right to pursue happiness any way you want. They wanted to leave it up to you to interpret that however you want. Last but not least, the Tenth Amendment, which addresses the powers of the states and the people. Any power not given to the states by the Constitution or specifically prohibited by the Constitution are left up to the states. The Constitution gives certain powers to the left over, the states get to decide what to do. The Constitution has been around for a pretty long time. But throughout our history, there have been times when people disagree on how to interpret what the founding fathers meant. In cases like this, we rely on the judicial branch to deliver rulings. And even then, sometimes justices disagree. Some believe that the Bill of Rights should be adapted and should be interpreted based on the needs of that current society. And others, sometimes referred to as the four-corner interpreters, believe that we should only take into account what is written in black and white and make our judgments based off of that. Now, whether you see the Bill of Rights as a living document, a permanent document, or something in between, we should all agree that it's more than just a document. This little piece of paper has the potential to keep you safe, happy, and free every day. So yeah, the Bill of Rights is pretty important.
All right. So now that we have a background on the Bill of Rights, okay, which we should have known anyway from 8th grade social studies, we're going to do a little activity. So, oops, too far. We have this quote here by James Madison, and he says, "Wherever the real power in a government lies, there's the danger of oppression. In our governments, the real power lies in the majority of the community, and the invasion of private rights is chiefly to be apprehended not from the acts of government, contrary to the sense of its constituents, but from acts in which the government is the mere instrument of the major number of the constituents." What do you think that means? What is he telling us to be scared of or to be weary of? Who are constituents? Who are constituents?
Are they the people that helped write the Constitution?
Close. They're just the people, right? The constituents are just the people, right? They're all of us. We are all constituents, right? So what James Madison is telling us is that government is only as powerful and only as dangerous as we allow it to be. Because what right do we have as a society if the government no longer serves our needs? What are the people supposed to do? Get rid of it or change it, right? Exactly. So James Madison is kind of reminding us again that we have this duty, right? That as constituents, we always have to be careful that we don't give government too much power to be harmful. Okay. Now, so if you'll go to Canvas, and we're going to break into our study pods in a moment. The first thing we're going to do is you're going to have a small group discussion in your pods about like the first 5 or 6 questions in the document. And the point of this is for it to be all group work. So we're trying out these study pods so that we can kind of get to know each other, that we can have common ground in the class, we can build community. Okay, so we're going to try this for about 2 weeks or so. And then after Unit 3, we're going to kind of revisit it to see if it worked, if it didn't work, if we liked it, if we didn't like it. Okay, fair enough. We can try hard for 2 weeks and give this a good go. Thumbs up. Okay, awesome. All right, so at this time, I'm going to open the breakout rooms. And if you'll bear with me for a moment.